Welcome to Discover Energy Work, and here I am today with Rebecca Lowrie. And it's been an exciting time because suddenly I couldn't find anybody to talk. And it's not because there aren't lots of people to talk. I talk to a lot of people I don't necessarily want to record. But I came across Rebecca, and it's been like this dry period of not finding anybody. And then suddenly I've got 100 people, and Rebecca, like from 1 minute to the next, was like, yeah, let's do it. I think you've got a great story. I'd love to share your stories with a lot of people. And I'd like you to introduce yourself first of all, Rebecca, because it's difficult for me to say what you do, not for any funny reasons. Just I don't think I'll be able to describe it nearly as well as you have.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. It is hard to describe what I do, so I'll use some words and see what happens. So I help men to heal and explore and transform their sexuality, who they are as a sexual being.
Hmm.
Basically, that's the gist of it. Yeah.
Wow. So you're like what we are saying, because my major in university was psychology, and that was done like years and years after I'd done all the energy work, and I was like really blasé. It's like I don't believe in psychology, and it's all energy. We need to experience these things directly. But I'd say from psychology, like the science, we identify who we are extremely by sex. Like if a man can be a man, or if he feels powerful as a man, it's really a lot about sex. And of course there's our sex, and then there's a gender, and then there's sexuality, and those are all like different things. So we're not talking about gay sex or heterosex or anything. We're not talking about, we're talking about the masculine energy. Is that what we're talking about?
Mm, I wouldn't limit it to that, actually. I say a few things to all of that. For one, I always say there's more to sex than sex. So sometimes when I say I work with men's sexuality, a lot of people think that that means that I help men have better sex, and that sex is when there is some form of penetration and an orgasm,
Mm,
and if that is your definition of sex, that's fine. That is certainly a thing that could happen. It's a very nice thing that could happen, but
mm,
it is just the tip of the iceberg of what's
mm,
possible
mm.
for who you are as a sexual being, and for how you can use your sexual energy and how you can identify with your sexuality. So I do work with cisgendered men, so men who were assigned male at birth and who agree with that and who feel that that is right for them.
Okay.
And so I have worked with trans men, and I have worked with gay men, and I've worked with women and couples and thruples and all sorts. But over the years of doing that, it was very clear to me that my sweet spot was, straight men. And so that's where I go. And my remit is with them. They might come with issues, but we almost always sort that. But that drops us into a deeper exploration. The
Yeah.
other thing I want to say before I forget
Yeah.
is to say yes to the thing that you said at the very beginning. I always say that how a man feels about himself in the bedroom is how he carries himself in the rest of his life. There's so much pressure, isn't there, to know what you're doing in the bedroom and to kind of bring it. And so, which is, conditioning. But if you feel not even like, "Ugh, hey, babe, I'm great in the bedroom," that's usually a cover up. But if you just feel like, yeah, I know what I'm doing, I've got some moves, I'm all right, then
Right.
the rest of your life, you've got some confidence.
I've got so much I want to talk to you about because I think it's so interesting for me personally. One of my the things I was considering doing was a senior project on gender because I think gender is so interesting. And of course, it's been a big topic generally now in the last few years. But at the time I was writing it, it wasn't. But I'm fascinated in you as a person. I mean, how did you like go from being? I mean, I always say to my energy workers, like, come on. Some of them, got scholarships to Oxford, and they went, no, I'm gonna do this. This is what my calling. This is so generally, I'd say like yeah, like a calling, like the universe or a spirit or an experience calls us to do this. So how old were you? You know, you say you gave me a bit of information of the background. You said I'm from Memphis. I'm from Elvis Town, and the swinging pelvis of Elvis. You know, is a sort of sexual connection there. But I mean, where do you start? I mean, I know you can study sexology, but I mean, is that your background? Are you a sexologist?
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, I'll give you the potted history, and then we can expand on that if you want, so I don't bore you and your listeners.
Lovely.
So I was born in Memphis. No, actually, I was born in Dallas, but I was raised in Memphis.
Okay.
I came here I'm in the UK. I came to the UK in 1987, and just lived a normal life for whatever the normal was. I had a job, I met somebody, we got married, we went to the pub, that was my life. But I was always very interested in people. So my background before I'd left, now I'm giving you the longer history.
Good, go for it. Come on, let's get it stuck in
until you stop me. So my background before I came to the UK, I'd been at university and I'd been studying something called human services, which was all sorts of psychology and philosophy and sociology and human growth and development. And it was all about how humans grow and how we're conditioned and who we become and how we live in societies and cultures. And, I was fascinated by people. I didn't know what I wanted to do with that, but I was fascinated by people. And I came over here and I didn't do anything with it for a while. I waitressed and, worked in restaurants or whatever. But eventually I went into doing some care work. So I worked with adults with learning difficulties for a long time, adults with autism, adults who were considered potentially harm to themselves or others, a lot of that kind of work, which I adored until I didn't. Kind of, for me, it was like, it's hard work, like really hats off to all those workers that do that work and do that caring. But it was in the day center that I was working in. I had a friend there who was studying psychosynthesis, and she lived in a shared house. I mean, this is at least 29 years ago. She lived in a shared house with a gentleman who was a really well-known Western shaman over here. And so I kind of got a bit immersed in potential alternative ways of healing, ways of looking at the world, that sort of thing. And I thought that I might train to become a homeopath because I was interested in that. Then I got pregnant and that kind of all fell apart. I'm giving you the long history. Anyway, scroll forward. When my daughter was 2, I was speaking to somebody who said to me, "What are you going to do with your life now? You're not going to just be a mom. What else are you going to be?" And I was like, "I don't know. I hadn't thought about it. I'm pretty in shock to have a kid right now." So we talked about it, and I was telling her this history, and I was really interested in people, but I felt like I was supposed to work more in the healing realms or something. I knew I was really good at giving massages because I'd lived in a shared house for a while where everyone used to come to me for massage. So she said, "Well, why don't you do, an ITEC certification and in massage, because that's a good basis for other things because you have to do anatomy and physiology with it." And actually, we were talking earlier about you came across a master who blew your mind with energy and stuff.
Yes.
On this massage course, one day we were swapping massages because we had to practice, and there was a person left over who asked if she could do some energy work while I was massaging this person. And of course, she asked the person, who said yes. I was like, yeah, whatever. No idea what she was on about. So I went to massage this person's shoulders. She had her hand over her way down the other end of the body, and I could feel something. And I took my hands off and I went back and was like, that's different. So I asked her to move away. And when she moved away, I couldn't feel it anymore. And I was like, well, that's weird. I could feel that. Like, okay. And so that's, that with the background of my friend and the shaman and everything kind of started to open my eyes. And I started to read a lot of things and doing every kind of healing course I could, which eventually led me. This is a very long story. I didn't
Yeah,
do
yeah,
very good at
go
telling
for it. I'm
it.
enjoying it. I mean, people have got, some people have this like bang open, like that was my bang open, and it wasn't easy to deal with. But like you have an almost nice, comfortable road so far. I was
Yeah, I
actually,
haven't thought on that another time, but so trying to make the long story short, scroll forward to when my daughter was about 9 or 10. We went to this lovely family festival. It was a Buddhist festival, no drink, no drugs, that kind of thing. And I had heard that there was a Tantra workshop going on. And I had always had a lot of sexual energy, a lot of sexual desire. Sometimes that had been great, sometimes it had been not good at all.
right.
And I thought, I had heard that Tantra was about sex, which it really isn't. But hey, in the West, we didn't know any better at the time.
Yeah.
This was 17 years ago. And so I went to this workshop. It was 2 hours, introductory thing. At the end of it, I was looking at everybody, all the participants walking around, and they looked like they had just seen God or something. They were just like off their face. Again,
Right.
no drinking drugs. And I looked over at the teacher, and I've told this story a lot before because it was such a defining moment for me. It was like a spotlight shone down on her, and I heard the words, "You will do this work." I was like,
Oh wow,
"What?"
wow.
Yeah,
You had like
like, "No."
a auditory, like clairaudience, like
I
something
guess
going.
so. Like the universe whispering in my ear.
No,
And I was like, I don't think so.
yeah.
And so, here I am, 15
Wow.
years,
And so it's
17 years
interesting
old.
because you didn't say like I'm a tantric, I'm a tantric master and I work with the people's energy. So you didn't use that term, but that was a connection for you happened in that workshop.
Yeah, so after that, I got scared and I didn't do anything about it for about 18 months. It really scared me. And eventually I did go on this particular teacher's long-term training course. It was 1 weekend a month for 6 months, a deep dive, she called it. And at the second course, she said to me, "Would you take so and so out at lunchtime and do a session for him?" And I was like, "What?" She's like, "Just take him out, do a session." I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about." I'm here as a student. And she said, "You will know what to do." I was like,
Yeah.
"Okay." So
Actually, I want to just go back a moment. I'm really
oh yeah,
sorry, but
that's okay.
I'm so touched by you saying I was scared of it because I feel, yeah, well, I feel like people think, yeah, it's the angels play their fanfare, and I'm now going to do my thing, and I didn't feel like that when I realized like I've got all this connection with energy, and I'm able to, I douse the sickness in people's bodies. That was one of the things, the freakiest thing. I didn't find that difficult, easy to talk to anybody about. That's the sort of thing I wanted to keep as my private, almost shameful secret. And I can imagine, though, like, the stigma that's involved with talking about sex, I can imagine that might have been really challenging. So I really just want to say thank you, I think, for a lot of people. But sometimes we get this opening, this gateway experience, and we go, whoa, off.
No,
I
thank
shouldn't say
you.
that. But
Oh
like,
no.
run away, run away.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, listen, we're all brought up in a world, a culture, a society, and I say this a lot too, where we've been taught that it's good and safe and right to retreat to the thinking analytical mind and to leave everything from the neck down as bad and wrong and dismiss it altogether. Your felt sense of knowing and your intuition is rubbish. Trust science over that. Of course, a lot of science is based on intuition, but they don't know. And so if you are then someone who comes into, well, I could feel that with my body, but I can't prove it with some science measuring stick. Suddenly, you are vulnerable and running the risk of being other, of being different, of standing outside of the norm, right?
right.
Then
Yeah,
add sex to it. So like,
yeah. No, it's it's special. That's really special. And so you going back, your teacher said like, oh yeah, you'll know what to do.
So I went up to this young man and I said, well, we're about the same age, but the teacher says that I should take you out at lunchtime and do a session. And he was like, yes, before I even finished the sentence. I was like, what is going on? So we went outside and he told me what was going on and I knew what to do. I can't tell you, it was like something came through me, but I helped. He was helped. And I went back into the teacher and said, what the hell was that? She said, you already know this stuff. You just don't know that you know it. Let's awaken it in you. And so for the next few years, I assisted her, but I also went on my own journey because, I don't feel that most of the time you cannot work with energy unless you've had your own journey of it. You have to have done the internal work. Otherwise, you're not a clear channel for it. And you have to always be doing the work.
Yeah. Yeah. I
You
actually want
can't
to share
say,
a
oh, I've
little
done.
story just that comes to me, and it's just a confirmation. A friend of mine, I won't, he hasn't come out publicly with it, but he stands in front of temples, and then he knows the feng shui of the temple, and he can correct it. So he correct the energy flow of a temple, and he doesn't know how he does it. He can't do it for any other buildings. He just it it comes. They've tested him. They've taken monks and masters in China. He's in Hong Kong, and he was tested by monks and masters in China. And he would do things like saying, "Oh, yeah, you need this building over there," and they'd pull out the old maps and the old plans, and they say, "Yeah, that building was there, but we pulled it down because blah blah blah. I want to build a library or whatever." He said, "Oh yeah, but no, the energy and flow's not right."
Chills.
And so what I'm saying is like, it was, this is your area. This is just what you know. It's like a knowledge that beyond a personal knowledge. It's a transcendental knowledge even. So beyond the self.
And it's not, yeah, it's exactly beyond the self. And really my work to be a good professional is to always be getting the self out of the way,
Right.
is always doing inner examination, so I know what is my bias, what is my issue, what is my shit conditioning, whatever, and so I can move that out the way to be as clear as possible for this client, and after years and years and years and years of doing that, and I still do that, and have accountability, and I have mentoring, and all of that, there is something that comes through me now that doesn't touch on who I am as a person. My partner and I have a lot, we call it this, my work is called sexual alchemy, and we call this that comes through me the sexual alchemist. We talk about when, clients are with the sexual alchemist, not with, Rebecca's there, this all sounds a bit schizo. It's not at all. It's just it's an energy that comes through me. It is sexual alchemy energy that comes through me. It's like a transmission, I guess.
Yeah.
Which I used to be afraid of saying out loud. It's only in recent years that I've started claiming that.
I think again, like this is where my thesis was on the definition, the scientific definition of self. That that if you do the research into all of the evidence we have of psychic, that we haven't defined the self. Like everything's about what happens to people, but we don't know what a person is. We don't know what the self is. There's just too much,
really, isn't it?
And that's why I said, I was saying to you before we started, like I'm not an advocate that suddenly everybody follows energy work, because we don't know who we are. We don't know what the self is. How can we have a society which is based on a bigger self when we're not even prepared to embrace that at all? So,
yes,
and
it's
a personal experience, that people go through. So that's lovely.
I also feel strongly that there are, we're straddling several multi-dimensions at once. We are spirit and the cosmos and consciousness and all of that, and we are experiencing a human life. We, we have perception of having hands and sunshine outside, and whether it's a simulation or 3D or whatever it is, so we're straddling both of these. And I feel like if you're coming to work with someone with energy, and you've got, say, shame, that's a big one,
Yeah.
in the area that you're working with them on, you're going to reinforce that in their system. So if, like you're saying, energy work isn't for everyone, because if it's like pouring water out of a rusty bucket is not going to give you crystal clear water.
Right. And although I think some healers would say that if you're coming from the right angle, that if you have that problem yourself and you work on it with somebody else, you're kind of working on it together. Like it's not just clearing their problem, you're also clearing your problem. How do you feel about that?
To me, that sounds dangerous and tricky, because you are still then, look, we're never perfect. I'm not perfect. I work on myself all the time, like I'm always clearing and going deeper. And, there's always multiple layers of multiple issues. So like, it's not that, but I wouldn't, if I was holding shame around erections, if I had a fear of penises or something, I could not do this work. And I would hope that, if there was a practitioner, whatever gender, who hadn't worked through their own shame around that particular stuff, would then not do that specific work.
And is that specific to shame, or is that just whatever it is, whatever area you want to work on, you should, in your experience, you should have?
I think shame particularly,
Okay.
Possibly, for example, if you had cancer and you were asked to do energy healing on someone else with cancer, that might be fine. That's not. But then personally, I'm really, really careful about who I would let work on me. So if in that same situation, which I don't want to create now, but I've said it now, I would want to know how they are dealing with their own and what is their perception of it. Because if they think they're being punished by it, I don't want them working on my system.
Right. It is an interesting point that you're bringing up, which is why I think energy workers, I think we're working on ourselves constantly, and I think there's also I think there's energy work is probably the most vague term, because we say Reiki, and that means somebody's gone. And I don't mean this with any disrespect, but you could say it means somebody's done 2 days or an online empowerment, which was half an hour of them sitting in a chair quietly, and then calling whatever they do under that term Reiki, and they say, well, I'm doing energy work. And then you have energy work where I feel as I said, like you step into a spiritual field, you step into another reality, and that is just it's hard to describe, because we're trying to relate things to reality, yeah. But and so we live in this really nebulous term, energy work.
Absolutely. And two things come to mind. One is that life is energy work. How we're living, how we're being is energy work. That's it. That's fundamentally, however you are living your life, what you're exuding, who you're being, that is energy work. If you are, not that we have to be loving and kind all the damn time, but if you're generally living your life as someone who, is loving and kind, then that's putting a certain kind of energy into the world than if you're somebody who goes around kicking people, so that is energy work too, right? It's not just energy work, like we're talking about quite deep energy work, really, is what we're pointing to, and how we apply that professionally, but how we live our life is also an energy exchange. I was going to tell a story about Reiki. So I trained in Reiki a long time ago, wouldn't use it now, wouldn't touch it not my thing, but I did. It's part of my journey.
Sure.
And after I did Reiki 2, I was at the time I was married to a chap who I didn't know at the time probably had depression. We didn't have those words back then. I mean, this was a very long time ago. We didn't have the internet yet. It was, oh, I'm old.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I came home from doing this Reiki 2 and I was like, husband, can I do this stuff on you? He wasn't thrilled, but he kind of said yes. He really should have said no. And I shouldn't have asked him, but I was a baby healer then. I didn't know. So he gets on the table and I put my hands on him. And what do? I go, please let this work. Please let this work. I want this to work for him. I want it to make him better. Yeah, that's right. The next day he was suicidal.
Oh my God.
Now, maybe that was what was meant to happen, blah, blah, blah. I don't think so. I think I was in my ego utterly.
Yes, of course.
I wanted to win.
Yeah.
Not even, I mean, to be fair, it wasn't even so I could say, look how great I am. I really wanted him to get better, but it was I that wanted him to get better. You know, it was right. So now I never do that anymore. Thankfully, I've had several other stories along the way where I learned, you know, but now I don't tell people, yes, I can heal you, I can fix you. Often I can, but I don't know what their story is, what their journey is, what they need. I know that I can lead them to themselves. I can help them get closer to who they really are. And when you're standing more in who you really are, the other stuff kind of transforms.
Yeah.
And then I get out the way.
Yeah. You know, I'm reminded of one of my favorite things in psychology. Or yeah, I loved psychology. I was never expecting to love it so much. There's something called the illusion of explanatory depth. And that says that, you know, just like, you know, you learn something and you think that once you've learned this really simple thing, you go, oh, it's easy. I can do that. And then once you start doing it more, you realize, wow, this is really complex. And I never forget somebody posting, I've got a headache on one of these health groups on Facebook, and you get 5 people going, I can fix it, and I'm like, you know, you really need to do an evaluation. We really need to spend some time working out what this is. Could be so many different things, yeah. But I certainly don't know if I could fix it until I've done an evaluation, and even then I won't know, because just it seems like layer after layer after layer. Sometimes.
Right, and even saying fix it is like,
yeah.
What did you even ask that person what outcome they want, and then what is the system doing, and what is actually going on there at a deeper level?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm curious about a word that you used before, which was shaman. Yeah, shaman, or I don't know really how to say it correctly. But so do you feel that some of your work is shamanic or shamanic?
I wouldn't claim that. No, I haven't studied shamanism. I have studied with shamans,
Yeah.
For different aspects, more not even for ways that I might work, but more doing work on myself. So I wouldn't use that word. I'm trying these days to be very careful about the language that I use. You know, I do know some people, for example, who are white people who are self-proclaimed shamans, and I think some of them are. They've studied the lineage, they've studied with lineages, and you know, I wouldn't use that word. And there's a lot of people in my world that would use priestess, or I don't know, or even tantra. I don't use that. You know, I studied with neo-tantra teachers, you know, Western.
Yeah.
So occasionally I throw that word around because it was certainly a part of my journey, you know,
Right.
part of that awakening in me. And because that's truthfully, a lot of the guys that I work with don't know, they don't have a language for this sort of work. They don't know to look for sexual alchemy. So they look for tantra or tantra massage, which isn't even a thing. Don't get me started.
Right.
And you know, so if I don't throw that word around a little bit, they would never find me. But I don't claim to be a shaman or a priestess or nothing like that.
I'm curious because I'm, you know, before we were talking, you know, I mean, I think a lot of guys, yeah, and I don't think I'm included in that particularly, but a little bit. Like they wouldn't know even what would happen if they would come to you. Would they have to take their clothes off, and they'd have to show you their willy or something, so something so ridiculous. I mean, yeah, I know, yeah, and I'm just going, okay, well, what do you have to kind of like peel away for people so they go, okay, it's about this, it's even about because I'd say, well, it's almost about your presence as a man, being comfortable being man. And so what do you say? I mean, can you do it on Skype? Could you do it on?
Do it via Zoom? Yeah, I mean, thank God during this pandemic I've been able to work via Zoom. It's really powerful because I think we spoke about this before. The bottom line, the core of all the work that I do is energy work. And so whether you're in the room with me or you're, how many thousands of miles away, I can still tune into your body and energy system and do the work.
Yeah.
When someone's here, I tend to also work on the body. I suppose one of the gifts of the calling is that when I put my hands on someone's body, I know what to do to get the energy work to, I don't know, go in deeper or something. I'm not sure even what it is. So I can do it with, oh, my hands are starting to tingle now. So I can do it without you here, and I can do it via Zoom. But what was the original question? Because I didn't think I answered it.
I was just kidding, whether somebody has to show you their willy, I was just being
sometimes,
silly.
yeah. No, but sometimes. So when I work in person, yeah, I don't do that on Zoom. I don't feel like it's secure enough. Like I don't record sessions, and I don't know what's going on in the technological world. When we started the pandemic, people were talking about hackers coming into meetings and stuff. So Zoom meetings are all fully clothed unless there's just some random rare meeting reason why I might, I've worked with a chap, love him so much, who when we first started working together kept telling me that his penis was deformed and that he was afraid he would never be able to penetrate a woman, and he wanted to be able to have babies, and and all of this. And after much back and forth via email, I said, look, you're just going to have to come and show me. Like I need to know what I'm dealing with. This is way pre-pandemic, years and years ago. And eventually he came for a session, and I said, look, I'm just gonna have to take a look. Like I need to know what I'm dealing with here, because I can't help, you telling me it's deformed doesn't help me unless you've had a diagnosis, which he hadn't had. So eventually it was really hard for him. He was a young Muslim man, bless him. He was supposed to get married, make babies. That's what he was. So he hadn't been with a woman. No woman had seen him, so this is really intense. Eventually, very nervously, he takes on his trousers, and there's this normal penis there, which I was a little surprised, because that's not, because he'd been telling me for long months. And I said, so what do you see? Because I thought, I'm not going to, what does he see here? And he said, it hangs to the left. And I said, yeah, penis is hanging one side or the other. He said, no, I've seen porn and they're in the middle. And I said, when you've seen porn, have you seen a penis that wasn't erect? And he thought about it and he said, no. And I said, when you're erect, is your penis kind of in the middle? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, they just kind of hang. Some hang to the left, some hang to the right, I said, sometimes they're even get erect to the left or the right, but it's all skin and flesh, and it's all a bit mushy, and women are a little, elasticy, and but yeah, he'd spent years thinking he was deformed. And so a lot of times in person, one or both of us might be undressed. It depends, like I'm working with the body and intimacy and rerouting neural pathways and getting rid of shame. I mean, shame, fear, guilt, and conditioning are like, that's like the core foundation. Pull that out, kind of okay. You're not If you get rid of the shame that's telling you that your body's wrong or your desires are wrong or you shouldn't want to have sex or whatever, pull that out. Many guys can find their way.
I just feel there's a whole fascinating conversation into like, I mean, I don't even know if it's a thing that you work with, but having studied as a psychologist, having studied like human sexuality, there's the whole paraphilias and all that kind of stuff, which is like, you know, there's that, I mean, I feel like it's a whole show, and I think there's something we could definitely talk about. And it is, for me, what's important is you share, as I said, like for everybody, for you sharing your stories, and then um, yeah, as I say, like also letting people know that there's somebody like you out there. And again, you know, it might sound funny for a lot of people, but it it reassures and relaxes me when you talk about, well, there's something that comes through that it's this alchemy, and I've now like starting to come to terms with it. But it's just it's a knowing, um, and it's not particularly personal. So that might be a red flag for some people. They're not
Oh,
ready
I'm
for
sure.
that.
I'm sure.
Uh,
There are people who want to see your list of qualifications. And to that, personally, what I say is I can show you a list of things that I've studied and courses I've done and workshops I've been on. And that has certainly helped create the container through which that energy flows.
yeah,
But that is not what's doing the work.
yeah,
You know, my list of qualifications is really irrelevant.
right, right. Well, I mean, I think there's a reason that, I mean, from my point of view, there's a reason that I've been looking for somebody to maybe start even this season 3. I'm not sure, but um, I've been looking for somebody to talk to, um, that's going to talk about energy work and open it up a bit, because I felt like energy work, because I'm going to do remote viewing, or I'm going to do energy healing, or I'm going to do, and it's massive. As you say, you could say our lives are energy work. Yeah, nothing is not energy. Everything is energy. And then for 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 me, like one of the key things you shared is that you're connecting with energy, you're connecting with this like almost raison d'etre, the reason for your life, and it scares you. I mean, I think that's powerful. I think people need to know it can scare you. It's okay. You know, even just being, I wasn't working with sexual energy, but it's working with energy. You know, and I might even argue, well, all energy has a root in sexuality. So you go, well, you know, you can't even say energy without talking about the drive to reproduce, the drive to grow. And so, yeah. Anyway, so
Pleasure.
that's one thing. And then there's the other thing, which is just you explaining like the scope of it, you know, which is, you know, that people come up and sometimes they, you know, that story of the man having to show his willy to be reassured on a very practical, down to earth level. You know, I mean, that he needed
There
to
was
get.
energy work that came later in that story, but you know, that was the starting place, you know, like when people say, do we get undressed? It's like, I don't know. We might. I need to, depends on what needs to happen. If you're telling me your willy's deformed, I need to see it. You
Right.
know, if you've never been touched, you know, I worked, there's a chap who I worked with. Oh, I love him so much too. Can you tell, I love everyone I work with.
Yeah.
It comes
I
absolutely through a channel
understand.
of love. He was 50 years old when he first came to see me. He'd never been with a woman, never seen a woman naked, never been naked himself with a woman, shaking. I've interviewed him actually. There's a video interview of me and him talking a few years ago, which shows you how far he's come. And so we're talking and I'm intuiting, you know, and I'm feeling into where do we need to start. Usually I would tippy toe people in, you know, but I could feel like his system was telling me something else. And so, and I always trust what someone else's body and energy system tells me. And of course I check in with them
Yeah.
because that way I'm out of the way. Right. So I said, you know, I know this is day one and you've just arrived and you're nervous because I can see you shaking. But I feel like we need to do something quite deep end. And he was like, what? And I said, I think we need to do a ritual where we undress each other and then observe each other's bodies. And he was like, okay, which I didn't think he would be. And it was, so we set up the container of it. Again, energy work, you know, it needs alchemy needs a container, right? Alchemy needs a container, couple of things and some fire, and then they transform. And so we created a safe container by talking about boundaries of consent, what was okay, what wasn't okay. We agreed that we would go very slowly, that we could, you know, stop at any moment, that there wasn't a goal, you know, that it was just to play with this and see what felt right in the moment, that either of us could say stop at any time, and put a whole bunch of safety around it,
Right.
you know,
right.
Set intentions, because intentions kind of create the pathway you're going to travel down, and then started. And, you know, we ended up both naked, and I said, how would it feel if I were to gaze upon your body, you know, and I kind of had a look so he could feel me looking, you know, and then we changed over so he could, with permission, look at my naked body without any shame or fear or being told no or don't do that, or, you know, me covering up. It was like, yeah, here, have a look.
That's
And
so
it was so powerful.
So powerful, you know? So brave. He's so brave. You're so brave as well. You know,
it doesn't feel like brave to me on my, I mean, for him, absolutely. For me, I'm even going to cry. It feels like the deepest love. It just feels like love.
Right.
I can't even think of any other way to describe it. It just feels like love.
I want to do another show with you.
Okay, I can talk too much.
I feel like we touched on this. I'd like to talk about the alchemy, you know, at another point, and just talk about that and just get your viewpoints on it. You know, I've done some research into alchemy. It's not what I specialize in. I wouldn't say. If you say like the practice that I do, the Taoist practice, there is alchemy in there without a doubt. But I want to say, like, how do people get in touch with you? Like, I mean, how, if I was wanting to get hold of you, I've got a problem and I search, I'm probably going to have to search for your name. But I mean, is there other things that I could search for that I'd come across to you?
So, yeah, I mean, I have a actually brand new website, which I'm very proud of, which sexualalchemy.com or RebeccaLowrie.com both point to it. So either way, I'm all over social media. So I'm on Facebook, just as I don't have a professional page or anything, just me, just Rebecca. On Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. Those are the ones I seem to get. I know there's more, but I haven't got that far yet. So there's, I know. So most of them, I think I'm Rebecca Lowrie. I think Instagram, I'm Sexual Alchemy, but like S_X, you know, because they don't, you know, Facebook and Instagram don't like the word sexual. They're very, whatever. I know. Where else am I? Oh, I just started my own podcast as well. Just launched a couple of weeks ago, the Sexual Alchemy podcast, wherever you listen to that. And I wrote a book as well.
You've written a book?
I did, yeah. Yeah, okay. I wrote a book, which
Go on. It's called Sexual Alchemy, I guess.
It's not. No, that book's yet to come. The book I wrote, it's called 101 Meditations for Life, Business, and Bedroom Success. And I wrote it 2 or 3 years ago because on the back of a conversation with someone who, I can't even remember what it was now, but I saw there's like 101 ways. Oh, I know. He was talking about how to meditate, you know, and that he couldn't sit still and do it. And I was like, yeah, there's like 101 ways to meditate. And he was like, there are? So I was like, oh. And I did a Facebook Live, and I came out with about 70 of them. And I was like, this would be a really easy book to write.
Yes.
Because, you know, there are. And, you know, right. It took me another 2 years to write the book because writing a book's actually hard. Oh, even an easy book to write was hard. But yeah, so I put that out. I didn't launch it or anything, but it's on Amazon. And the Sexual Alchemy book will be.
So it's called, you could find your name on Amazon and you'd find it. People would find that. And they can, book online, or they can send you a message and
yeah, on my website, there's ways to get in touch with me. There's links to the book, and there's also a whole page of resources that are free There's some audio meditations that you can download and use at home. There's a self-love guide that you can print out and stick on the fridge, and because that's kind of the core of a lot of my work as well. What else? There's a whole bunch of free stuff.
Yeah,
So you can.
we haven't even touched on love, and I could see that love heart behind you, and I'm thinking, I developed energy work which was based on love, unconditional love, and I'm thinking, wow, it's beautiful, like Mickey Mouse ears almost.
I said that to someone the other day. She said it's shining like a halo. I said, "You mean Mickey Mouse ears?" I got to change it, but that's what we have for now.
It's beautiful. I see the love behind you. So, I'm going to first of all, I'm going to say thank you. I think we're on our like 45 minutes. I think I haven't done a session with you. I'd like to do a session with you. I mean, that's how, like I said, I was on the phone with you for 5 minutes. I said, I'd like to do a session with you. That's how much I feel confident in what you're doing. But I want to just recommend everybody to that. Please, everybody, go the page for Rebecca, and go and like all her things to support her. She's very much a one-man band, as am I. Go to Discover Energy Work. I've got some new stuff on there. I've got an energy work course which is there, and people can learn to do energy work like in a very simple way from Udemy. And yeah, keep it going. Keep working on your life.